some future day, how AI is going to change everything. And here is Marc Beckman. He is an advertising executive in New York. He's also cursed with a JD degree from Hofstra. He and I have that sordid past in common. I didn't go to Hofstra, but I got a JD degree. I call it Lawyer in Recovery. And he also has an undergraduate from Boston College, Boston University. Marc, help us sort it out. A lot of people don't even know what AI stands for, and I think that most of us, including myself, may have an inkling of what some of the implications are, but nowhere near a full understanding of it. Help us out.
Well, John, first of all, thank you so much for having me on your show today. It's great to meet you. Congratulations with all of your success. I know that you are what I call a slasher, like a modern guy, right? Like you're doing real estate, you're a lawyer, you got your show, you're into finance. So congratulations with all of that. I think honestly, the
I
world
keep
needs
looking for
more.
something I can be good at, you know?
We need more minds like that. And the way you set up this conversation as it relates to AI, artificial intelligence, is interesting because my book, Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything, is built exactly for your audience. It's created for beginners, for people who are curious about how artificial intelligence can be used today to improve their careers, to improve their lives as it relates to family and community. And what I do is I lay it out, John, across all the different business sectors and provide the reader with tools that he can access right away. He could access them. I give them names and links if he wants to use artificial intelligence for search, to write memorandums, to write business proposals, to draft emails, to create beautiful videos. It's all in there, whether you're in finance or in the creative industries, it's covered.
And these are not things that are coming. These are things that you're describing that are actually here and now, right?
Absolutely, John. So a lot of people come over to me and they're like, hey, Mark, like, what's the easiest way for me to start using artificial intelligence? People are afraid, John, of emerging technologies. It is a little intimidating when something new comes out into the marketplace, but they're available now. And what I try to do is I direct these people towards something that they're vaguely familiar with. So I start with AI search engines, and they could leverage. I lay it all out in the book. They could leverage ChatGPT or Perplexity, and it's a much better experience than Google for a lot of reasons. I'm sure you would agree. Like Google isn't such a great product. In fact, I think it's substandard. It's pushing advertising in our face. And then with a small text box, we end up getting a search of several links and we got to like dig through that. If you use ChatGPT right now, you're able to get a bigger text box with no advertising and it actually rattles out an answer for you, right? So if you're looking for a business plan or a memorandum or whatever it might be in real time, you get the answer. And now you can have sources too. So if you want to verify that information, it's right there at your fingertips. So I think a great place for beginners to start is with search.
Okay, so do we go to ChatGPT or do we go to Grog?
Okay, good question. So these platforms are a little, with the way that they're trained, each LLM, whether it's Grok, ChatGPT, Perplexity, or China's version of it that's very popular in the States now, DeepSeek, they're all trained by the corporation that owns them, the creator, right? So Grok is owned by Elon. So if you are a person who I'm imagining your audience is leaning more to the right, more conservative, Republican minded, you probably will enjoy Grok's answers more than perhaps something like Sam Altman's platform, ChatGPT, which tends to skew a little bit left of center. So my recommendation, though, is to consider using these various tools for different reasons. So I'll use Grok, for example, if I want to use it for search purposes. If I want to see like what's on the consciousness and what's in the news in real time, it's enormous because it's also taking all of the data from X. But if I want to take some time to build out, let's say, a business proposal, ChatGPT has a lot of good tools there. But I'll use, personally, I'm a little bit more active with AI, so I'll use several different tools within each project as well.
So you're saying, if I've heard you correctly, that there's ChatGPT, Grok, DeepSeek, and there was one other that you mentioned that I'm not familiar with.
Perplexity. It's really well done.
And who is the sponsor or owner of Perplexity?
So honestly, I forget the owner's name off the top of my head, but of interest, of note, is that Perplexity is one of the companies right now that is in the running to buy TikTok. And it would
Ah,
be enormously powerful because think about this. Like, for example,
so maybe that's Larry Ellison.
I don't think it's Ellison.
The question I really wanted to get to, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I want to get it before it gets lost. It sounds to me that you're inferring that even a freaking artificial intelligence platform is politicized. That if I want to go, if I'm right leaning, I'm going to go to Grok, and if I'm a little more moderate and maybe even to the left, I'm going to go to Chat GPT. Well, where is the intelligence and the ethic, you say it. How is that ethical that these sources for knowledge would be somehow politicized? That's mind-boggling to me.
Yeah, for sure. So the large language models, these LLMs, are definitely racist, sexist, and biased. And it goes beyond politics. There's no doubt about it. And it's something, actually, John, that will never be reversed. So what happens is these big companies go in and they train the LLMs on a corpus of data that's been created by humans. Think in terms of everything that's ever been written, from poetry to news articles. Think about books and beyond, right? But these are centralized business models. So the CEO and his team are effectively steering the vision of the platform. So like DeepSeek is the most dramatically biased out of all of them because they're so pro-China. So if you go into DeepSeek, or if anybody in your audience wants to try this out and ask questions about Xi Jinping, Tiananmen Square, or the Uyghurs, the answers will blow your mind. It literally denies that China is involved with slavery as it relates to the Uyghurs. It extols that Tiananmen Square actually never happened, and Xi Jinping is like considered like the leader of the free world. So,
So I
what's
think
it?
you've just illustrated the potential bad parts of AI. I mean, there is a large group of people who literally worry about the impact of AI on our civilization and our even our virtual existence. And I don't mean virtual from a computer standpoint. I mean our existing in the future as people.
John, this is why we are in an AI war with China. Make no mistake about it. It is critical. In fact, I believe that artificial intelligence is going to radically change American society in 3 to 5 years. And I'm not saying that to just make a bold statement. It really will become the underpinning of most business sectors. It's already happening now. In fact, that's what Elon is doing with Doge to capture all of this data. But the AI war is real, and it's on multiple levels. We're transforming warfare, but we're also transforming information and messaging. And just yesterday or the day before, it was reported in Reuters that China's started already like a propaganda engine into Taiwan through the use of generative AI to divide the nation's perspective of America, capitalism, and democracy. Because with AI, they could generate a ton of information in written format, in video, as well as in photorealistic imagery. And they're just bombarding it across social media and into the news outlets. So we are in a war. And like going back to the issue of DeepSeek and that search, think about like if our children, if the next generation are using AI to learn and they're using DeepSeek, the way that the Chinese are going to represent history will be definitely very different than the way Americans might represent history. So our children can also be influenced in a way for educational purposes that could be dangerous.
And we're just talking about the tip of the iceberg here. I mean, when you talk about artificial intelligence, the Tesla vehicle that I owned is the quintessential example of artificial intelligence because I've got full self-driving and it can take me from West Palm Beach to Miami and I don't even have to touch the steering wheel or the gas pedal nor the brake.
It's amazing, John. And now take it a step further. the data that Elon is capturing, not just with X for Grok, but also every Tesla owner who's driving is capturing data as it relates to mapping and beyond. And that data capture is super valuable. So, what Elon is doing with regards to artificial intelligence, and then of course he owns Neuralink too, where that's the company where he's putting chips in brains, and I actually think it's a good thing.
It may be one
It's
of the most
remarkable.
exciting inventions that he's working on, to be able
I
to
agree.
give people with paralysis the ability to walk and to recover from
Yeah.
their
Yeah, and that
life-altering
technology
injury.
actually, I talk about it in my book, John. There's an office of doctors here in the New York area that have embedded chips into the brains of paralyzed patients, and basically what they do is the surgery creates a bypass of neuron messaging that goes across the area that's kind of dead in the brain. So it bypasses that area and it triggers both feeling and movement as you've articulated. It's remarkable. The advances that we're going to see in medicine because of AI are just so profound. And this is why I say AI will definitely improve our society radically within 3 to 5 years. It's all happening.
Now, when I was in college, a very long time ago, if we went to the encyclopedia and copied text from it, or from a book for that matter, and copied the text without giving attribution, they would kick you out of school. It was called plagiarism. It was called cheating. Yet you're directing us to Chat GPT and Grok to write our term paper and our final exam question.
I think artificial intelligence is an incredible tool for research purposes. It creates a leveling effect, and in certain ways, it impacts that traditional westernized university level education that you got, right? If you want to come to NYU today, you're going to end up spending about $100,000 a year. It's astronomical. So, a lot of people who are in the lower socioeconomic demographic can't afford that. But now, let's face it, everybody's got a mobile phone and everybody can access that information that gave you a foundation for a wonderful career. Take it a step further, which is really exciting. They could also then use artificial intelligence to say, okay, I've learned, I am really intrigued by this financial business model. How could I turn it into a business and how would I run the business? And AI can also be used to show the individual who never went to Harvard, Yale, or Princeton how to stand up that new financial business and help activate. So it's going to create a tremendous amount of value and wealth in our society. It's going to create more jobs. It's going to create more value for entire communities as it relates to advances in medicine, as well as access to food, food security, and beyond.
So you represent through your advertising agency some of the most iconic companies in our country, including Pepsi and others. How are you using AI to help develop advertising campaigns, and does it influence your work at all
Yeah,
for
it certainly
this?
does, John. We're using AI in two ways. The first part, I think, is the most important, but the least sexy: data analytics. So, no longer does a CEO of, let's say, a massive consumer goods company need to rely on a team of data analysts to look at the data, make conclusions, come back in 30 to 45 days, and provide information to the CEO. CEO now, in real time, can do the analysis himself, or a CMO, since you asked about advertising specifically, can look at how he's deploying his budget across social media platforms. And he could see that maybe he's getting more traction at the top of the funnel and then actually sales at the bottom of the funnel with Instagram and TikTok as commerce versus Facebook. And he could quickly, in real time, redeploy those funds in the areas where he's getting the most traction. So data is the number one way that we're using it, data analytics. But the fun part is about standing up the campaign. So how many people have you come across that are like just always dreaming of launching, I'm going to launch my own whiskey, I'm going to launch my own cigar company, I'm going to launch my own fashion house. Well, now that fashion designer wannabe could create their own brand name, their own logo, their primary packaging, secondary packaging. They could design their own suit, their own dress. They could pre-sell on ecom and promote with social media and get paid if they want with crypto in any format and eliminate really the competition and the risk. They could, a lot of friends that we have, in fact, I have clients now who are building out product, including, like, for example, in Christmas ornaments, pre-selling, and then once the orders come in, they take the risk and start building. And we're going to see a lot of these challengers come in play, creative challengers that want to go after the big fashion houses, Kering, LVMH, but don't have the money or the know-it-all. Now they could do it.
It's just fascinating. So, Elon Musk, we've talked about his full self driving. We've talked about Neuralink. The one thing that we haven't talked about is his humanoid robot, otherwise known as Optimus. He thinks everybody in the world is going to have a little Optimus buddy to wash their dishes and iron their clothes. What are you thinking?
I think it's great. Let's face it. Optimus or Optimus-like robots are going to free up people from a lot of the tasks that we all hate, right? We spend so much time cleaning, folding laundry, cooking, running errands. And what I think is going to happen in short order is the first stage is going to be these task-oriented robots will be shared within communities. So, John, maybe you and two of your neighbors to make it more cost efficient will share a robot, and that robot will run to the local public supermarket and pick up some food and stock it in your shelves and do your laundry, and it will be cost efficient. But here's the thing: robots are here. They're here already. Like, for
Yeah.
example, think military. Drones are really becoming majorly important. I think that Pete Hegseth is going to step out and make some serious investment as it relates to drones. These are robots, and they're going to come into play for not just attack, not just search and rescue, but for security as well. So private security, home security, businesses that require security, it's all going to change, and it's all powered by artificial intelligence.
So if we all have robots, and I agree, what I've read is that they're being designed in 1.0 to be to do repetitive, menial, and dangerous tasks. But they don't they also have the potential to kind of replace a lot of what we do in life? And does it run the risk of stripping us of our self worth if we've got this machine that's going to do all this stuff for us? Does that even
Yeah,
make
that's it.
sense as I'm trying to describe it?
Yeah, I think that's interesting when you talk about self-worth. To get a little philosophical with you for a second, if I may, I think the happiest people are those who are very productive.
I agree
And
with you.
productivity can come in several different ways. It could be, building your own company, working. It could be some of those chores that you do at home, and it could be even, lending your time towards a charity that you love. But I think, I'm sure you would agree, John, even the wealthiest people, if they're not productive, they're not happy. And I think
Well,
that's
that's
an issue.
that's why at 72 years old, I am still working as hard as I did when I was 50 years old. And, I have the opportunity to live a pretty nice lifestyle. I've worked my butt off since I was 12. I've saved, I've invested. I'm sitting down here in South Florida enjoying the fruits of my labor. But frankly, being a country club boy and hanging out with the guys and gossiping about our friends and drinking all day just has zero appeal to me. If I'm not doing something, I'm not really happy. So I
There you go.
get your point, lock, stock, and barrel, but I just don't know that most people are wired that way. And I guess I do worry about uh, ushering in the golden age and the notion of an age of abundance. Are we qualified and capable of handling it? I think is what I worry most about.
Yeah, unfortunately, I do not think that we as a society right now are capable. And the reason I say that is if you look at our next generation, young millennials, Gen Z, even Gen Alpha, there's a part in my book I talk about this. They are literally amusing themselves to death with the most ridiculous content on social media. They are sitting there and doom scrolling across TikTok through all hours of the night, not learning anything, and just literally amusing themselves to death. But yet, look at where TikTok comes from, China, a
Yeah.
place that is now restricting access to the next generation. Here in New York City, the New York City government banned government employees from downloading the app on their phones 2 years ago. We don't talk about this for some reason, but it's official. There's a reason why. But yet,
But
the
aren't
next generation is just sitting there and they are nonstop on their phones, on their iPads, gaming and amusing themselves to death. And I think it's problematic. And maybe it's from parents being lazy, maybe it's from kids being too dominant. But we do need to be in touch with nature. We do need to be in touch with non-device, non-technological experiences to make sure that our minds are working at the highest level, and we're creating and innovative and entrepreneurial and growing both individually and as a nation.
Well, it seems like you touch on two really important points there. One is the quality of life component. And, I try and stay relevant, so I go to social media. I try and see how the truth with John Gordon is trending on social media. Maybe AI can help us break through the YouTube algorithm and we'll get more followers. Being able to have people like you on our show certainly helps. But I too can be succumb to lingering on social media for ridiculous amounts of time when I start clicking on the reels and I start watching all these short videos. They are entertaining, they're mindless, and they're incredibly time consuming. So I find myself having to consciously break away from it. If I were younger and less experienced in life, maybe I wouldn't do so. But I also think that you talked about data collection. Isn't the big fear with TikTok that China owns it and that they're just collecting massive amounts of data and information on our entire populace that could be used for bad purposes?
Yeah, that's certainly a big part of it for sure. I don't think people realize the extent of how much data they're giving up just by using TikTok as well as by using their phone. I mean, all day long, your habits, think in terms of like when you log onto TikTok, they know who you are, they know where you are, they know what you're swiping, they know what you're looking at, what you're interested in, how you're spending time. They could locate you, geolocate you. It goes on and on and on. They have maybe access to your credit card. That's, very common. People are boosting posts and advertising. It's an incredible tool that they've built. It's the best social media tool and it's the lead tool for s-commerce. So they have access to financial data, access to your personal data with your driver's license and beyond. So yeah, there's a big risk there. A lot of people aren't reading the terms and conditions of apps that are not just American, but Chinese too. I mean, there's a similar issue. We mentioned DeepSeek, the AI, the Chinese AI app earlier, and there's a massive problem with that. With DeepSeek, John, DeepSeek's terms and conditions expressly state that your information is going to be stored on their servers in China. The Chinese government allows for access to any Chinese companies that are storing data in China. So all of a sudden, friends of yours who are CEOs and uploading proprietary information for their companies that are uploading, their personal information to use the app, their driver's license, etc. That's all fair game for China now. So people really need to start paying attention to what they're doing. They need to start reading terms and conditions.
Well, and there's this hefty amount of, I don't know whether it's justified or not, skepticism about people inviting Alexa into their house, who we fear has the potential to listen to every word that we speak. She certainly knows what products we buy off of Amazon, and reminds us frequently that we might be out of Crest toothpaste and don't we want to reorder it. But you invite Optimist into your house, and they're going to live with you, and they've got video cameras, which is how the Optimist is going to see and navigate. They're going to know every single secret that you possess. I mean, the Optimist will be able to do everything short of reading your mind. Maybe able to do that before it's all said and done.
So the feature that you're talking about is built by a lot of companies, and they can actually access what you're searching for as well as what you're speaking about vis-a-vis your phones too.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of people all of a sudden, John, like you and I could have a conversation about taking a trip together for, we want to take a fishing trip together this summer. And then all of a sudden we're being pushed all these advertisements surrounding a specialized fishing trip.
Yeah, Orvis all of a sudden shows up on your doorstep in your cell phone.
Totally. So people need to realize that that exists, and usually it's turned on. And what they need to do is toggle within their app to turn off that what is considered by many to be a feature. So as the owner of an advertising agency, we love that. And I think one of the biggest ways that artificial intelligence is going to radically alter our relationships as consumers is no longer will we be bombarded with useless information from retailers. Consumer customization actually will create utility, but with that comes access to your personal information, your interests, your likes, your dislikes, and beyond.
One of the things that's just perplexing to me that you could probably answer, why did DeepSeek have such a profound negative impact on NVIDIA? I'm not aware that they really cross over or compete with one another, but surely there must be something there that I'm missing.
Yeah. What DeepSeek did is incredible. DeepSeek was created by a Chinese man in the um, hedge fund business in China, and many believe that China helped finance for years DeepSeek and the hedge fund. So there are some arguments that China is behind this. And what they did was they undercut the American industry significantly. When they launched DeepSeek, it was a shiny silver object in the AI space to American consumers because it was accessible for no money. It was free. This is in stark contrast to what some people perceive as the expensive prices of OpenAI and ChatGPT, an American entity, as I noted earlier. Now, what's interesting is the argument was that DeepSeek went in and did not need to rely on NVIDIA's super chip, which is super expensive. What they did was they restructured the way that their generative AI worked and created a predicting tool with regards to their LLM and referencing that didn't require the amount of hardware, the amount of compute, and they were able to undercut NVIDIA by putting less expensive chips in there. And what happened was at the time, NVIDIA really had a moat around it. Financially, it was just the only game in town. All the big tech companies, from Google to Microsoft to Amazon, they were all relying on these super chips from NVIDIA. And NVIDIA was charging them a fortune. They were literally charging tens of thousands of dollars for one chip. Well, what DeepSeek did was really, really catastrophic to NVIDIA. They ripped that moat apart and they showed a couple of things. First, they showed maybe this protectionism that the Biden administration put into place as it relates to chips doesn't really work. There are rumors that, in fact, NVIDIA was selling some of its chips, backdooring them through Singapore to get to the Chinese company. But moreover, and more importantly, DeepSeek was accessing less expensive chips and showing most consumers don't need to have the entire package that they get with regards to accessing the information on a tool like ChatGPT. They just need the end result. We just want to know the answer to our question. So with a lower quality chip, DeepSeek was basically able to get the same effect as ChatGPT, its competitor, and it turned the whole market upside down.
It
And that's
certainly
really what
did. Will NVIDIA reclaim their leadership position?
I think so. There's such a huge demand right now, John, but a lot of companies, US based companies like Amazon and Google, they're also they're building their own chips now because they realize that NVIDIA is just truly the only game in town. There are other companies that are also like coming up and challenging NVIDIA now. Like I think there's one brand that's called Grox, with an
Right.
X at the end, not to be confused with
Right.
the AI search engine Grok, that's doing exactly what NVIDIA is doing. And there will be other challengers to NVIDIA. But in the meantime, NVIDIA still remains the most powerful, the most reliable chip maker on the planet.
So I'm an early adapter. Do you have any conduit to Elon Musk?
So Elon does pop into my Spectre from time to time, but we don't work directly together.
Well, you and I probably don't know each other well enough yet for me to impose and ask a favor of you. I just want to be, I'm, like I said, I'm 72 years old. I don't know how much runway I have left, but I want an Optimus robot for my house.
I love
I
it.
want to
Yeah.
be a beta tester.
I love it. I love it. Me too, man. You and I both. I want a lot of robots. I want them all over the place. And obviously I'm a tech optimist, and I truly do believe that AI is going to make the world a better place. It already is.
Some future day, it sounds like that day is here. How AI is going to change everything is the book. And we have just had a wonderful conversation with Marc Beckman. How do people buy the book, Mark, and where can we follow you?
Yeah, John, thank you so much. So people can follow me on X, on YouTube, on Instagram, all platforms. It's at Marc Beckman, MarcBeckman. And it's a great time to buy the book. The book here, I'll hold it up. I have a copy of it. The book, Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything, is available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, Target, major booksellers. But the reason I say it's a good time to buy this is because it's sold out of Amazon. It's sold out on Barnes and Noble, and they just restocked. So
Well,
it was number one in
congratulations
AI.
on the success of your book. I'm
Yeah.
not surprised, and you're one smart guy, and it's been the fastest 30 minutes I've spent in a long time. Thank you for coming on The Truth.
Oh, it's such a pleasure. I really appreciate it, John. Have a great day.
Come back soon. I think we'll have a lot to talk about.
All right.